he's also done a private research project on the side, which he's going to tell you all about tonight. So I won't touch on that too much here. My name's Derek Powell. I've been trading for, I think it's about 4 years now. And during the course of that time, I've often found it's difficult to maintain consistency in trading results, particularly when live money is involved. And this is kind of how I got involved with Ken and NeuroTrader, because essentially this technology addresses the biggest problem with trading, and that's, I think we all know, that is the emotional aspect. It's not so much the technical analysis, although that is obviously very important. Your system is important. The way you interpret your system, the way you take your signals from the market is obviously very important. But it seems that the psychological side plays a bigger part, and this is why what Ken does with NeuroTrader and psychophysiology resonated so strongly with me, and this is why I took the decision to get involved with Ken. And hence we joined forces, and I became the UK dealer for NeuroTrader. But tonight is more about introducing the technology, introducing the science behind psychophysiology, and basically telling you about what we do. So I'll pass you across to Ken, and before I do, thank you everyone for coming. It's great to have you all here, and I'll pass you across to Ken. Good evening, Ken.
Hi, Derek. Thanks a lot, and welcome to everybody for turning out tonight. In short, what tonight is primarily about is to open up your understanding towards the biological effects of trading. So when we speak about, as Derek said earlier, about the emotional aspect, what we're really talking about is the connection between our psychology and our biology. So getting afraid, getting excited, all these things are very detrimental for consistent trading success. So that's what I really want to focus on. I want to give you guys just a little primer into how important psychophysiology, that is the psychology and the biology, how that as a subject, how important that is for you guys when you go to trade either live accounts or demo accounts. I just want to give you a reference point so that your trading will get a little bit better after today's presentation, regardless of whether you come back for more information on the subject in the upcoming webinars. It's totally up to you, but I'd like to give to you guys the knowledge that I've acquired 20 years. So as Derek said, approximately 20 years now. I started at university. My entire schooling has always been very commerce, economics dominant. I have a master's in finance. And so it was normal for me to, well, I always had an inclination towards the markets, even as a child. But once I was at university, I took on subjects in terms of portfolio analysis, portfolio design, securities analysis, finance law, and these sorts of things. And so I found it very easy and very natural to trade the markets during university. I progressed straight away to trade my own private account with a partnership, and things just took off from there. About 8 years ago, I was just like everybody else. You have your ups and downs, and I was the entire time I was always developing systems, trying to increase my consistency. That is to limit the down days and to try to push the up days. So, to flatten out the volatility a little bit, but also to push the winning trades for them to be stronger and for them to be more of them and for them to be longer in duration as well. So obviously, by doing this, you focus on mathematical things correlations, correlation matrices, and all this sort of stuff, technical analysis, fundamental analysis. Then I moved into qualitative assessment, assessing myself. What is happening to me now? I wanted to start to understand, why did I have a winning day yesterday and why am I having a losing day today? Why did I have a string of 3 winning days in a row and that was followed by 2 losing days, or a week of losing days? Why would I be frustrated? Why would I be extremely excited? And why were those 2 emotional responses not correlated to success either? So you can be very, very angry and you pull out a winning trade. 2 days later, you're very angry and you have a string of losses. Then you actually want to get really excited when you get a win, and right after that, it doesn't extend your win into tomorrow. You have a losing. So there's no correlation between things like that either. And so I got into qualitative analysis, which is simply recognizing anything during the process of trading, documenting it, and putting it on a Likert scale. So from 0 to 5, how do I feel about my entry point? 0 to 5, how do I feel about the pound dollar? How do I feel about the euro USD now? How do I feel about my profit target? And all these things I started to document, and I really wasn't satisfied with those results either, because they're subjective. So if I classify myself as a 3 out of 5 today, my 3 out of 5 today and my 3 out of 5 tomorrow, it doesn't mean that I'm in both days, that I'm going to have 2 successful days, because they're subjective and in context with today. So I could be a 3 out of 5 today, given all of the difficult obstacles, challenges, and that I have on today, and tomorrow I could have a totally different context set of challenges, which also makes me a 3 out of 5, but I could have a winning day yesterday and I could have a losing day today. So none of this stuff is correlated because it's subjective. So I said to myself, I go, okay, there has to be something else. There has to be a way of quantifying these biological responses, and that took me into biofeedback and neurofeedback, and I lived in Silicon Valley for a year and a half, lived in Montreal, Canada for a year and a half, just studying these things with guys who are the best in the world, Dr. Gavitz and people like that from UCLA, and over 8 years of research, we've come up with some extraordinary results. We're the first people in the world to officially present a product. We did that in Quebec City at the Canadian Annual Derivatives Conference back in 2016. We filed for a patent in August of 2016. I just recently got back from China, presenting at the annual International Chinese Hedge Fund Summit. I was a guest speaker for artificial intelligence and biotechnology, and so we've developed a system of monitoring the body using a wearable device, correlating that to price and market sentiment, using an artificial intelligence module based on a neural network, which starts to recognize patterns of behavior and starts to reason what is a good trade and what's a low probability trade. So given that little introduction, I'm going to go through a couple, I'm going to go through a bit of the biology, a little bit of the science in terms of psychophysiology. So if we have everything right now, can everybody see? If someone can write in the chat, maybe Lev, is the screen okay in terms of seeing the presentation? Okay, cool. All right, so in terms of, so my area of expertise, or this research project, the heading of the research initiative is the functional dynamics of thought and the decision-making process in observance of the neurological and biological responses of the human body whilst trading the financial markets. And so while studying the functional dynamics of thought, we've broadly categorized decision making in terms of two systems. We have the subconscious response, which is really purely based upon our nervous system, and we have our cognitive processing, our executive functioning, which also makes decisions. Now, when we're trading, the problem that occurs, and I'm sure that everybody will be able to resonate with this, is you feel like you should do something and you talk yourself out of it. So you could be in a losing position and you start to talk to yourself and you say, no, I think it's going to get better. And you stay in a losing position. Or the position goes in your favor and you say, oh, wow, I reckon I should take my profits now. Right? So that's your cognitive processing. That's your executive functioning, where your subconscious response is based upon your nervous system. And this is where we get the term intuition. Intuition is nothing magical or mystical. Intuition is simply what they say, it's a gut feeling, right? Now, why do people say a gut feeling? Because you have more nerve endings in your abdomen than anywhere else in your body. It's a very, very highly intelligent part of your body. You have this is why you can feel things in your gut. So when you're feeling nervous, scared, excited, you'll get a flutter in your stomach, simply because there's that many nerve endings around that region. So given these two systems, what we actually want to do is we want to use both of them in a synergistic manner. So we want to be able to feel something and cognitively be able to recognize that event. So let's say, for instance, as an example, you're standing on the side of a footpath and you want to walk across the road, and there's some traffic. Now, you'll feel a flutter in your stomach on when you can dash across, and you'll also feel resistance on when you shouldn't. Now, if you follow what your nervous system is saying, because your nervous system controls and pulls in data from your eyes, your ears, from your sense of touch, so you can actually see, hear, and feel oncoming traffic through wind, through vision, and through hearing. This is how you start to perceive distance. Now, if you don't talk yourself out of it and you actually just go with your biology, you'll actually get across the road very, very successfully. If you listen to your biology, you run across, but halfway across, you tell yourself to run back, you might get hit by a car. Now, this is what happens to us in the markets. And so it's the congruency between the two systems which determines how successful you're actually going to be. Further to that, what actually happens when these two systems actually become congruent with one another, we actually get the sensation of peak alpha, and peak alpha is actually being in the zone. And that's simply what it is. There's a congruency between your nervous system, the data that it's pulling in from the environment, the way that you're processing it, and the eventual outcome ends up being a heightened state of awareness. A heightened state of awareness is where you are perceiving your external environment and you are internally processing it congruently. So that brings us to this slide, which I had just explained now. So we realized this quite a number of years ago now, and we simply came up with this very simple formula where your present environment multiplied by the amount of resistance that you feel biologically is going to equate to the degree of success that you're going to have. Again, we can go back to this example of running across the road. You're standing on one side of the road, you need to get across to the other side of the road, which is the light bulb on top of the little man's head. But if you multiply the environment, which is the oncoming traffic, with the idea of going across the road, you multiply that by the amount of biological resistance he's experiencing is going to equate to the degree of success. So we actually then started to monitor the body, multiplied that by quantifying resistance, and that started to give it equate to whether or not we were going to be successful in the market or not. So, and as we all know, like these two pictures will show, biologically, a winning trade and a losing trade are absolutely two different things. The interesting thing, though, is that they're very similar as well. So the similarity lies in muscle tension, right? The guy on the left has just pulled off a winning trade. There's muscle tension there, right? His fists, he's made fists. He's got tense muscles now. The girl too, who's rubbing her eyes, she's actually got muscle tension there as well. There's a very, very thin line between being nervous and excited, right? So when you're in the market, you are feeling a biological response. Now, you can either frame it as being nervous or you can frame it as being excited. So if the markets are just about to go up and you're feeling nervous, it's because you want to go short. You're feeling the same biological response. If you're going to go long, you're going to feel excited. But the biology is always the same, and psychology has proven this a million times. And my wife is a doctor of psychology, and she was the first one who introduced this concept to me. She goes, biologically, there is no difference between being nervous and excited. It's the association we put to it, which determines whether one person says I'm nervous and the other person says I'm excited. It depends on what you're looking towards. And so I'll show you a couple of trades, winning and losing trades, where we had fully connected the trader with biosensors. And you'll start to see the profound biological differences between winning and losing trades. And you'll see that it's just absolutely obvious that there's a difference. So this is a winning short trade in the euro early in the morning. And this is the biology. The light blue line, the light blue at the top, the light blue waves there, that's abdominal breathing. And so you're going to have to take my word for it, because maybe if some of you haven't seen these types of graphs before, this is a relatively stable abdominal breathing, right? Yes, it goes up and a little bit wavy, but in the context of abdominal breathing, let's just classify this as being relatively stable. The other thing that you'll note is the red line is temperature. We measure temperature at the tip of the finger, and you'll notice that it is very, very stable and it's constantly increasing. So there's two things that we want to remember about abdominal breathing and temperature of a winning trade. So now we'll go show you another one. Yeah. So this is another winning trade. This is in the afternoon. This is during the US session. And again, you're going to notice that the abdominal temperature, abdominal breathing, again, is very, very stable. And the amplitude is the top to the bottom. It's strong. Amplitude means that the trader is breathing abdominally. To breathe abdominally means that you're actually relaxed. So, and you'll also notice, again, the same thing is with temperature. Temperature is very, very stable. It's increasing and then just flattens out because it's at about 35 degrees Celsius, which is very high for peripheral temperature, which means that the person is actually in a state of vasodilation. So he's actually very comfortable, very relaxed, feeling very good. And now we're going to see a losing trade. Now this is a losing trade, and what you're going to notice, we look at. So the first thing you can notice is that there's a lot more choppiness in terms of the abdominal breathing, and even the abdominal breathing at this point actually totally breaks down. So again, you have strong. So using the bio data, I'll read through the trade. So at the very start, he's nervous here because he gets high amplitude and the amplitude decreases. So he's not breathing really abdominally. He's already constricting his abdominal muscles. So he's already afraid. He relaxes. He has excellent amplitude here, and all of a sudden he starts to constrict his abdomen. He's getting really afraid now. Now it's just getting worse. He's restricted his abdominal muscles so much that he's not even breathing as deeply as he was anymore. Down here, this is thoracic breathing. This is, we're monitoring the breathing that's coming out of his chest. And these large spikes, this is him actually gasping for air because he's not getting enough air abdominally because he's in a losing position. So he's actually gone into a full-on fight-flight response now. And you can just see there's just no consistency whatsoever in his breathing. But what's even more apparent for all of you, you'll be able to notice his temperature. His temperature is out of control. So what's actually happening, he's vacillating from vasodilation to vasoconstriction. So his heart rate now is actually all over the place in terms of the amount that it's beating shallow then hard, shallow then hard. And psychologically, he doesn't know whether he is in an environment of threat or he's in he is in an opportunity. But we know what being in an opportunity looks like because we saw the other graphs. You actually are relaxed, your temperature is up, everything's nice and stable, you feel nice, warm, everything is fine, I don't have to panic. But here you can see the difference. He's actually starting to panic and his biology is telling us that he is. We'll do another losing trade. This is another one. And you can see again, temperature starts to decrease. It's very, very volatile. Again, you have totally breaking down. The abdominal breathing totally breaks down there, totally breaks down along here. You have a massive heart rate spike, extreme panic. And then it actually, his abdominal breathing actually flattens out and starts to become normal only because he was stopped out. So there was a relief after being stopped out. I'm sure that everybody has felt relief after you get out of a really bad trade. So I think there's one more too, and it could be a winning trade. Yep, this is a winning trade. And you're going to notice again the same thing. Temperature nice and high, flat, 35 degrees Celsius. Breathing very, very stable, relaxed abdominal breathing. Went into the position successfully, rode the wave all the way nice and easy, out for a profit, and that was the end of it. So we can see where the trader is, so we can recognize if he's actually moving into the market under stress or not. We can tell when he's in the trade whether he's in a bad situation or he's in a good situation, and that allows us to either not let him take certain trades, or that allows us to actually cut losing trades off faster than what he would himself. Because what happens is when you go into a fight-flight response, you decrease the amount of blood oxygen supply to your brain, which means that you actually can't make a good decision. You are biologically incapable of making a good decision. That's why we have stop losses, because you actually wouldn't cut the trade yourself, because you'd be in a state of panic and you actually wouldn't do anything about it, and it would keep on plummeting. This is why, unfortunately, in real bad real life situations like the Twin Towers collapse, people were jumping out of windows. This is the fight-flight response. You're no longer in control of your executive functioning. You have extreme amounts of adrenaline pouring into the system, which again decreases blood oxygen supply to your brain, and you will not exit a losing trade well, because your executive functioning is not online. So if we go down to here, so our system is all about taking biodata and creating a feedback loop where we only execute trades which are represented by biology that reflects a peak biological state. This is just a schematic of our patent pending technology, server-side and local computer software solution hardware. And now I'll do a very short, not a presentation, but just a view on what our biodata-based terminal looks like. Oh, sorry, I have to screen share. Okay, can you guys see the screen? Derek? I didn't hear you, Derek. Can you see the screen? Yes?
Yes, it's okay. You can see it.
Yes, so what we have is, I'll have to start that again. I'll start that again. So start that all over again. So I want to show you the start, the very start. All right, so what you're going to notice is the buy sell buttons are gray. They're actually inactive. Here we have some of the biodata, and here on the right-hand side, the large graph is our artificial intelligence interacting with spot price. This is biodata from a previous trading session. This is not live now, but this is in emulation mode. Now, what you're going to notice is here the buy and sell button, when the artificial intelligence recognizes from the biology that the trader is in a state commensurate to the peak state, it actually activates the buttons. It will not activate the buttons until the trader is in a biological state commensurate with a peak state. So we don't allow people to take trades when they're, let's just say, when they're offline in terms of biology and their capacity to make decisions. We have a peak performance indicator. This is a visual representation of what our algorithm says in terms of where you are into vasodilation and the peak state. Down here we have a representation of the 16 neurons that we have, or we call them behavioral models that we have, and they will start to activate and be inactive as the artificial intelligence interacts with price. So these colored bars, they represent each one of the neurons. So there's 16 of those, and they too will change in shape when certain triggers or when certain awarenesses have been recognized by it that are of importance in terms of some form of a decision making towards entering or exiting a trade. So that is pretty much it. So similar to most other trading systems, we have our orders windows, recap of data that comes from the artificial intelligence, and I think that's pretty much it for what I wanted to cover as an initial primer to the topic of psychophysiology or biology and peak performance trading. A little bit of insight into where the industry is going. This will be commonplace in the next few years, simply because the results that it produces are noteworthy of institutions adopting it. And so if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Whilst you're there, Ken, can you just cover the pacer side of it? Because I think a lot of people probably looked at the pacer and didn't know what it was.
All right, so we have a breathing pacer there in order to regulate your breathing. By regulating your breathing, you have a high probability of regulating your heart rate. if you regulate your breathing and your heart rate, then you're going to be in a greater position to, number one, oxygenate your blood. You're going to be able to, that's going to enable you to relax your muscles, which then you actually get into an upward spiral or a positive catch-22 situation where you're now even more relaxed, which just increases vasodilation, which gets you even into a better peak performance state to make better decisions. So it's a spiral up effect. Breathe in a certain rhythm, which is conducive to a peak state. So if you're breathing anywhere between, say, 5.5 and 6.5 breaths per minute, you have a higher capacity to slow down your heart rate, which will cause your body to start to relax, which causes your internal mind chatter to start to decrease, which then therefore gives you clarity of thought, which allows you to then be able to make the right decision at the right time. So that's the breathing pacer.
Right, yeah. I just wanted to get across the point that this can help you get into a peak, not just monitors the fact that, helps you get into a peak state, not just monitors where you are in terms of your state of your
correct. Yes, a good point. Yeah, so it's not just about tracking where you are, it's about tracking where you are, and it's also about assisting you to get to and stay where you should be. So that's what it's about. Because if we just monitored people and left them to their own devices, we wouldn't really be doing much. You'd be just recording really bad music. But what we're trying to do, what we do is we inspire and guide people to consistently get into a peak state and be able to get into a peak state faster and be able to stay in that peak state for longer periods of time. What happened, it's easy to meditate, sitting on the beach, right? Not a problem. There's no one on the beach, you're sitting there by yourself and you just meditate. They're very, very easy, right? But the point, the crux of the matter is to be able to maintain your breathing, your heart rate, and your clarity of mind when you need to make a critical decision and price is volatile. That's when you need to remain calm and relaxed. And to be able to remain calm and relaxed, you need visual and auditory cues to keep you on track, to tell you when you're off, to tell you when you're on, and to guide you towards that peak state. And then as a backup, so as a back office to when we make mistakes and fall out of a peak state and make an incorrect decision, for the software to be there and to catch us and say, no, I'm not going to process that trade for you.